Hi there. Welcome to our webinar of today for our ProMusicDB members. And today my guest is Laura Dickinson, singer, voice actor, and vocal contractor. And we're going to talk about how to use technology to build relationships that get you work. And just so you understand a little bit about Laura and her background, I'm just going to ask her to tell us briefly, in the last month, what are 3 to 5 things that you've done as a working musician in Los Angeles?
Well, good morning to you, Christy.
Good morning.
And thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited. I'm excited that this trash truck outside is going to leave soon, too. I don't know if you can hear that. Sorry. Okay, the last month has been really exciting, a little bit crazy. I went down to Mexico City and performed with a 17-piece big band down there called the Latin Jazz Orchestra. I continued I'm celebrating 11 years this year working for Disney TV Animation as a singer, voice actor, vocal contractor. I've done some instrumentalist contracting. I've done some music production. I've done music arranging, but one of my favorite things that I get to do there is vocal contracting, because I get the opportunity to hire a lot of young singers too, meaning youth minors. I was very lucky to sing in a 60-voice choir for War for the Planet of the Apes. I also have been working on a show called The Last Tycoon for Amazon with Kelsey Grammer and Matt Bomer. And for them, I'm their vocal contractor. I actually have to cast singers that dub for actresses and actors that don't sing. So that's been an interesting process with auditioning. And I sent in about 50 auditions to dub for this one actress, and my audition booked it. So that was good news. And I also have been rehearsing with the Claire Fisher Latin Jazz Big Band for a concert that we have on May 25th. So it's been kind of all over the place with sessions and live singing. And I'm also singing with the Los Robos Master Chorale, and we rehearse every Tuesday. We have a concert coming up on May 20th. So there hasn't been a dull moment, and it's been exciting. And I've been very grateful and feeling lucky for the month of March and April. It's been a good start to the year so far.
Well, I thank you for taking the time to do this with us today. And I just wanted to set that up for folks listening out there. We music professionals, especially in the Los Angeles area, and I'm sure in other major centers, all over the country, we are doing everything all the time. So it's really important, this idea about relationships in the business, because I'm sure that the work that you're getting, the work that I get, it comes from an established rapport consistently over time that we've, created with people that eventually move into places in the business that can hire us. And so this idea now about using technology to build those relationships is something I wanted to talk about today, because our industry's kind of moved into this, digital era, and a lot of things affect the way work is done. So now a lot of things can be done quicker and faster, so they say, with digital technology. But relationship building is still a process. And however, the expectation of what a music professional or a voice actor has available, the tools that are out there now to get demos done, to get pictures, that kind of thing, to you quickly are out there. And so we kind of want to talk about the effect that if you don't have those things in place, how they impact your ability to get work, and how you can use them better to maybe get you more work. So without further ado, let's just dive right in. So you've already kind of described some places to find work in today's music industry, Laura, but where do you think singers and voice actors are most likely to find work when they're first starting out in today's music industry?
Well, it's kind of challenging and tricky to navigate out, and it's intimidating to a lot of people, especially if you're shy or if you get nervous around crowds, which I do, and it's just, something you work on. There's the most opportunities to be found in the person that is sitting right next to you, sometimes at a rehearsal or at a live performance or even in a class. There's so many opportunities to take classes. I don't know if a lot of people don't know, actually, so I'll talk about it. If you are in the voice acting world, you have a free resource to you if you're SAG-AFTRA. There is a voiceover studio called the Don LaFontaine Voiceover Lab, and there are free classes there. A lot of time when you're first starting out, you still have some work that you use to supplement your income. So it's hard to spend money on things that will get you more work sometimes. I totally understand that. So if you can dig around for the free classes and opportunities, especially if you're a SAG-AFTRA member, I think it's a lot easier. And there's also one of my favorite things that I still sign up for and I still go to as much as I can, Gerald White's sight singing class. There's a bunch of chorales that you can volunteer in the Los Angeles area, and I'm sure in the Orange County area. I'll do some research on that. But a lot of those you pay a very small tuition to be a part of, and that's like a free sight singing, blending, people skills class. And it's also, singing in a choir is so good for you. It's good for your mentality. It's good for your spirit. It's really good to keep your chops up, whatever you're doing. And sometimes there are classes that you pay for, but there are some free ones out there too. And even if you're taking Gerald's sight singing class, I've met so many people through that class, and people have sent me their demos, and I've met so many wonderful singers through there. And it's just a place to kind of be supported and supportive to people. People tell you about their live performances, and it's a really great place to network. Same with chorales. There's all the people that are working today. I feel they really do sing in a chorale. They keep their chops up.
And I think that's great advice. I think, first start with what's around you, your community. Where are the folks who would be in your community? But I guess I would kind of go from this at an angle of primarily because I enjoy what I do and I want to do it as much as possible. So, we have to kind of be a little careful when we participate in these types of things that our goal isn't just to meet people. It is to get better and to support a community. It's not just to kind of go in and find out who's, on the upper tier of being able to hire me and impress the director that I'm, a key, person. Let that kind of come out and develop, how talented you are. I think, learn the collaborative skills and, learn new repertoire, learn new things, get better, I think that's
really important. That's very important what you said, because there's something about, and artists are a little more sensitive usually, but if your energy is directed to, hi, I know what you do and I really want to work, that energy it can sometimes be a little bit toxic. So just finding the balancing act and the way of really connecting with people on a human level and genuinely being interested in what they do and finding out, a little bit more about what makes them tick and starting a relationship with them instead of, I really want to send you my demo right away type of a thing.
Exactly. And we'll get into that. Yeah, we'll get into that a little bit later about, how to do that with a little nuance so that it's not, everyone is getting just blasted with all kinds of emails, not just from the music community, but everywhere else, marketing, from the time you wake up in the morning to the time you go to bed, you have, a flooded email box from, maybe people who want you to fund their Kickstarter or, an industry newsletter or, buy this at the store today, or there's constant flow of, here's me raising your hand, give this attention. And so when a musician is trying to put themselves out there, you really have to focus on the relationship and not that initial contact, raising your hand, here's me. We'll get into that a little later about the psychology of that. But anyway, moving on. Thank you for that answer. So again, how do they get the opportunity to do that work?
At the point where I'm trying to figure out what our audience is going to be here, if it's mostly, SAG-AFTRA singers or people that play instruments, but if you're looking for work as a vocalist, there's non-union work and there's union work. And the initiation fee can be very expensive, but there are ways to make payments through the SAG-AFTRA credit union. And it just depends on where you're at in your career. I am one of the few vocal contractors in Los Angeles that actually goes to agents to find people at times. There are some really specific jobs that I have to fill. Like for Last Tycoon, I had to find someone that was a sound-alike for Shirley Temple to sing as 7 years old. And that was one of the hardest contracting jobs I had. It's a resource that a lot of people don't jump into because there's a lot of negativity surrounding, well, agents are going to ask for more money. They're going to ask for screen credit. And I think that if you are at a beginning level in your career, you might want to consider having an agent if you can act, if you can dance, if you do musical theater. It's just another one of those ways to keep getting out and shaping your craft. Going to auditions is one of the best things you can be doing because it puts you in a place where new people are seeing you all the time, not just behind the table and inside the room, but outside the room too. And it keeps your nerves up. It's not easy to put yourself out there and sing your 16 bars at a musical theater audition sometimes. But when you're behind the mic in the studio and you're asked to sing a solo, it's the same thing. You know, you put yourself on the spot and you do it. And that's not as easy to practice alone. So if you do those other types of work where you're an actor or you're a comedian, or especially if you're a voice actor, if you can try and get a voiceover agent, I still do 3 and 4 auditions every single day at my studio, at my home. And they're usually quick 24-hour turnarounds. And you have to get them done. You have to dealing with life isn't easy sometimes, getting to auditions or doing your other supplemental work. So if you don't want to get an agent or do anything that warrants having an agent, there's also people out there that are agents for musicians for sidelining, which is not necessarily actually playing your instrument on set, but just miming. So there's work for that too. There's tons of commercial opportunity and print modeling, and there are specific agents that will specifically have a department for instrumentalists. So that's a good place to start. And something that we'll probably talk about in a little bit, making sure that you have your technology in order to be considered for those opportunities.
Yes. And today we're kind of specifically focusing more on kind of the singer and voice acting world, but I'll just quickly throw in for the musicians who might be listening out there. Musicians, some are starting to now, at least in Los Angeles, work with a few managers in town that are strictly for on-camera performances. So that's different from contracting an orchestra for a film project or contracting a live band for a pitch, for a theater show. Those are different. They can be one and the same person, but at least out here, it's kind of treated separately. So
exactly.
Yeah, the opportunities to get that work, again, this topic of conversation is, the reason this topic kind of came up for conversation was that promoting yourself in whatever arena will require some effort to assemble your digital technology, whether it be to get auditions together or whether it be to represent yourself in order to get an agent or a manager to submit you or consider you for representation. So, how to get the opportunity, I think the foundation of all that is really to start to look at yourself and your digital presence online as your marketing tool, one of your first marketing tools. And then you have the offline, presence, which, you need to develop some relationship skills and building relationship skills, but they really do work hand in hand. So how do they get that opportunity? It's, first of all, I think having that foundation of, I want to know when I go out there and meet someone, regardless of if I'm trying to pitch myself for a job, that if they request information on me, that I've got a website or I have a fan page or a link, something that online that I can refer them to that is an example of my work, and that they can feel good that they took the time to do that. So it's, for me, this question is kind of about setting the foundation of what's expected when you try to get opportunities. If you're going to go to an agent and you don't have a website, or you don't have headshots, or you don't have a demo together, that's like step one.
Yes,
You
exactly.
can't say, oh, I've been touring for 20 years and I don't have one. Well, that's great for you, but agents have to appease their clients, and their clients want to see you. Their clients want to hear you. And if you don't have anything to provide an agent the tools to market you, then how are they going to get you work? So this kind of realization of what needs to be in place.
And for the instrumentalists, I usually like to try and differentiate between vocalists and instrumentalists, because there's a lot of people that cross the line and that are musicians, period. There's a lot of singers that aren't musicians. There are a lot of people that own instruments and play them that aren't musicians. But I do get to do a lot of instrumental contracting also. And that is one of my favorite things to do, because I love finding new people. And a lot of these opportunities that we're talking about, like singing for a film score in a giant choir, or playing a recording date for a film as an instrumentalist, there aren't auditions for that. So the more you can get these things together to represent you, it's so important. But also there are opportunities for instrumentalists to kind of do what I feel like I do singing with Los Robles Master Chorale. I'm in rehearsal every single week without fail, unless I'm sick or get another job, of course. And I'm practicing. I'm really working on that. A lot of people that don't have the current tools are not really out there doing it as much. And that kind of reflects when your tools are outdated. Well, they must not be working as much because they don't need to have their current. I get demos with people that I know their files are labeled that the demo is from 2008. And I immediately can't trust what they sound like today. But if I go to their website and I see a video of them performing with the chorale or singing with the band, or, hey, they have all these shows that they just did, I know that they're up to speed and their skill level is current. There's also a lot of rehearsal bands in town, big bands, smaller orchestras that play every single day at the Musicians Union at Local 47. There's a huge set of rehearsal rooms there, and people are in there. They're booked every single day and night, and there are bands that rehearse on a regular basis. So you could maybe inquire about those if you want to get into a situation where you could sub into a rehearsal band just to get to know some new people and say, hey, there's this young guy that just graduated college, or there's this young girl that just moved to Los Angeles, and and then people start to talk and you build your relationships from there.
Right. And preparing to go into those situations, it's like I'm a type of person, I always like to have my house in order, I call it, before I submit on something, or before I kind of talk to someone about being part of their project. I like to have my house in order. And so there are some tricks that you can do out there if you don't have, if you don't want to spend time on a website, but you're on Facebook a lot. You can create a fan page and you can keep updates there. You can post videos on Facebook. You can videos from your gigs and things like that. And you can refer people to that. It's really just to keep things as current as possible. And however you I would say if you have a website from 15 years ago that hasn't been updated, that's not a marketing tool that you should be, out there saying, oh, you can check my website. Well, if it's 15 years old, then, and your latest picture doesn't look like you now, then that's really hard for people to trust. So in preparation
in that situation, I would almost even say take that down, like pull that down. People come to me a lot for consulting too, like help me with getting my website in order, and what would you like to see and what would you not. And the minute something is old and outdated, I say just remove that, take it off.
Right, or point it to your Facebook fan page or something. You can do that as well for your name.
You can use Instagram. You can use YouTube. Like I almost go right to YouTube after IMDb. If somebody is a voice actor or a singer and has a certain amount of credits, I kind of go to IMDb first sometimes, especially if they don't send me a link to their website. You can put a picture up there. You can put a resume up there. You can put your demo reels up there. And that's what a lot of casting directors use immediately. You can have IMDb Pro and you can go right to your contact page and see who your agent is, who your manager is, get your direct contact information. That is one of the most frustrating things when I go to somebody's website, like Tim Davis is one of our respected vocal contractors in town, and he has some singers on his page. I've listened to some of them, and I'll go to try and find them online, and I cannot find them anywhere. And this is not for like pirating people and like going around the vocal contractor. That's not what I'm talking about, but just like meeting new people and getting their demos and information.
Sure.
Because we keep those in our files. We keep a whole database of people and what they do. And if I find you online and I hear your work online and I can't immediately Google you and get your direct contact information or go to IMDb and look at your contact page, it's so frustrating. It's so incredibly frustrating. And I know a lot of people are concerned about their information and being safe, but have a specific email for having your direct contact. And then you can.
Sure. And you can get a Google Voice number. Yeah, you can get a Google Voice number as well. If you don't want to have your cell phone out there, in the world, you can get a Google Voice number to use for that specific purpose too.
You can get there's some things that's not even expensive. I think I pay maybe $15 a month for mine, and that works as a voicemail. It works as a fax. It works when I'm out of the country, and people can leave a voicemail and it goes right to your email. You can never miss a call, basically.
So probably the point we're trying to get across is there are some things in order to work. I know when you just get out of school and you're just out of, say, music school or music theater degree, that you're kind of, on the audition circuit. And I think the first thing is like get your headshots or get your demo or just like get working. But there are some things that, because the way the industry is developing in the digital world, where you really need to take a little time to establish that digital presence, and then take a little time on a regular basis to update that information, because that everything online now is being searched by everybody. And so you always want to have your best foot out there. We've talked about this a little bit, but what expectation do you have of a singer or voice actor when they contact you for work? Like you meet them or they contact you for an email. What expectation do you have when someone actually says, hey, I'm new in town, or hey, I'm so glad we met. I'm glad we crossed paths. I'd like to, be on your roster, or I'd like, to just give you my information in case, there's an opportunity later to work together. What expectation do you have of them?
I have so many expectations in my head, and a lot of times I try to just forget about them all. I try to keep a really open mind, and I try to remember, back like we were talking about connecting with people on a human level, this business can get really, really hard. And it's not easy to put yourself out there. I know, trust me, I'm still auditioning every day. It is not an easy business. And unless you're ready to be told no every single day, then I don't think that you should continue. Because if you just keep that in the back of your mind, that it's rough, and just when you're reaching out to people, they know where you're coming from. We've all been there, for sure. I think that the most important thing I can say about the initial contact with the vocal contractor or an instrumental contractor or anybody that can get you work, I think that you should remember that they're going to want to hang on to your information. They're going to want to keep you in their files, even if they don't think that you're ready or you're not up to their standards for a certain thing. You never know what's going to come around. Even if you're not union, like maybe they're going to have in one day referrals for a non-union group of singers, and you might want to pass along some information that could eventually get you to join part of the union. They want to hang on to you. So don't send links to your demos. That is the one thing that it's so hard for me to explain to people. I want to save your demo. When you send me a link to SoundCloud, I can't pull it off of there. When you send me a link to your YouTube video that has your video vocal reel, which I love doing now, and I'm working on my one for 2017. I just did a new one last year. I want to be able to save it. So think about sending out your, like if you're a singer, think about sending your demo out. Not really a long demo. I like to keep them under 2 minutes, 3 and they need to go really, really quickly, like clips that go quickly that keep your interest level. I think our attention span is down to like 7 seconds. And with technology and digital stuff, it's getting worse. And the minute you get a notification, something distracts you. There's a lot of information coming at you all the time, just like you said. Send your actual demo in a file. And if it's too big, if you have a video reel, here's a link to download my video on Dropbox. Or I love Dropbox. I use it every day. I have plenty of room in my Dropbox if you want to send me something. I have my monthly subscription, but I keep a Dropbox of everything for me. All of my tax forms, all of my headshots, all of my resumes, all of my reels. I think I have about 30 reels in my Dropbox folder. I have a generic one with kind of the overhaul of what I do, but then I have a specific jazz reel. I have a specific classical reel. I have a pop reel. I have a youth reel. I have a Disney singing reel. I could go on and on and on. And I keep them updated. And when someone is looking for a certain type of sound or a certain type of project, a lot of the times I'll just make a new reel. So send your reel as a file and think about having a Dropbox that has everything in there, like Laura Dickinson Media, I call it. And then I just take a link to that Dropbox. Here's everything if you need to download it. On my website, on my Reels page, here's a link to my Dropbox. You can download all of these Reels. So then if the person that would eventually want to hire me, they can save it. And a lot of times things happen so quickly that people don't understand. I'll get a call from a composer and they'll literally say, the session is on Friday, find me this singer to sing for this actress. And I have to go and tell everybody, I need you to do this specific demo and you got to turn it around within 24 hours. So checking your mail and your text messages, we don't want to be glued to our smartphones any more than we already are, but the timing is really important too. So I would like to get out there that if you can send actual files, it would be appreciated because we can save it. But and create an email signature. I want to know what your email is, what your phone number is, and what your website is if you have one. And a lot of people they sign thanks so much and sign their name, and I don't have any real way to contact you. I also would love it if people understood more that a lot of times we don't save email addresses into our computer because we can use our email program as an archive for our life sometimes, and a kind of a way to search your life at the last minute. So I'll start typing in someone's first name, and if your email address doesn't start with your first name, a lot of times it's harder to find you, and it just gets frustrating. So if you can have an email that starts with your first name and that's not your like princess 1995 at yahoo.com or whatever it is, actually have your name or something that you do. Like if you're a voice actor, your first name, last name, VO, or Laura Dickinson Music at Gmail, or even if you have a website, that's the go-to. A lot of times if I want to try and find someone, I'll try and type in their first name, their last name.com. And if that pops up, it just makes things so much easier. Or, Laura at lauradickinson.com. You can set up your websites to field any email. Like if someone emails me contact at my website, or info, or booking, or talent, or submissions, at any type of handle before the @ sign, it will eventually get to me. And a lot of people have that at their website. It's good to know in the future when you try and contact people, you can sometimes guess their emails.
Right. Well, if we were to kind of try to, if we were to try to just to water this down into 3 things, the first would be to have the actual files available for download
Yes.
whenever you send an email. So I will preface that by saying I do know that with the amount of web security with emails right now, depending on the email programs, there are issues sometimes in sending files right off the bat. So you may want to, in your email, if you're cold emailing someone about a job, maybe not send them your files right away. First, make the initial contact. And then you can, I would suggest maybe putting a link in that and then saying, I can send you the files, but I wanted to make you aware so that they come through. Because I know myself that I've delivered files to people and they don't get them because their email services block the attachment sometimes. So, or they have their attachments
set to low. Sizes of those files, because I don't experience that problem on my end.
Well, it kind of depends. Yeah, the music files tend to be a little larger, and I kind of have to make people aware. But there are some, like Yahoo services and AOL, they'll normally kick an attachment into junk mail unless the person is on your email list. So it can be just, I would say, in general, send the email with links to a download, but then maybe follow up if it's a cold email to say, I can send these right to you. Or if it's a Dropbox situation, then that kind of solves the issue. So that's the first thing.
Yeah.
The second thing
solves it. Absolutely.
Yeah. The second thing is to your email, your actual email address, for it to be what's easier for people who especially have to deal with large groups and contract large groups. Just the simple thing is making sure that your name is part of your email instead of some weird name or some nickname that you had, which I know we've all kind of been a little weary about, web security and things, but it's starting to make things a little hard. So for people like you who receive a lot of emails, myself included, having your name at least as part of your email is helpful.
That's really important what you said. When people are contracting large groups of people, it's so much easier if you just start typing their first name. And I still don't have a lot of my emails saved in my address book. I keep meaning to. And then when I type in a first name and it doesn't come up, I'm like, oh, I got to go find that email. I got to save it. And if you've already emailed someone, if you've emailed me already and it's our first contact and I type in your name, it usually comes up even if it's not saved in. So having your name, and then if you go to all those, sometimes contractors will actually put instead of like in a blind copy, if people want to carpool or people, need to know who's on the session for other reasons and they don't want it to be discussed, then you can see who has their names in their email. And then those people that you're like, oh, I don't know who that is because their name is not in the email. It's a good thing. And I think people forget about it.
And the third would be to if you're going to send a demo, the initial one keep it short, keep it under 2 minutes, keep your demos. I get a little bit impatient when I get a demo and it's 10 minutes before, 10 seconds before I hear any singing or I hear any, it's like, in preparation of the demo, have someone help you if you're not sure, if you did some recording in college and you wrote a song and it's amazing and it's on your, an album that you did, that's different from a demo. And don't consider just taking a track off of an album you did as suitable for a demo as a singer, maybe as a songwriter, but not as a singer. So just really be aware of who you're contacting and what you want them to hire you for, and provide them with the best demo possible.
You totally nailed that one. People sometimes don't understand. You don't need a musical intro. You don't need a musical break. You don't need, even if you're putting a verse and a chorus, if the verse is repeating itself and you've already heard those notes, just keep it short. Keep the shorter, the better. And
I don't need to hear the cool guitar lick at the top. I don't. I just need to hear you sing.
Less is more. And also it's better to leave people wanting more. Like if someone sends me a demo and it's too short and I want to hear more, I usually can tell what you sound like within the first few seconds. And it just, the shorter the better. If we want to hear more, we'll certainly contact you. Send me something else, you know?
Right.
Better to leave them wanting more than too much.
We've kind of talked about this next question a little bit, but as a singer or voice actor, is digital representation of themselves important and relevant to your decision to hire or refer them for work?
Absolutely. It's the only way I can get to know you without knowing you. If you're trying to establish connections that are new, people are going to look for you online and try and get to know you online. They want to read your bio. They want to see what you look like on camera, what you sound like recorded. So if you don't have that in place, it's kind of impossible. And a lot of these jobs that we're talking about, there are no auditions for. So contractors and employers are strictly basing their hiring you sometimes off of what you look like online, what you sound like online, how professional you are in your emails. If you have typos and don't use caps and you use emojis, like this is all a business. I like to run my communications with people just like we're running a business, being really professional, making sure to respond to people in a timely fashion if there's anything else you need. And just if you think about it from a business standpoint, I think it's super important. A lot of times I'll hire singers for sessions and I've never met them, but they really represent themselves well online, so I can really get a sense that I know what they sound like and I know what they're about. And without that, the job wouldn't be there.
Yeah, and there's a sense of trust that comes along when someone has a powerful or a good representation of themselves online. You know, folks like us that are in kind of middlemen, you know, we're contacted by people to help them fill something that they need, and you know, from our wheelhouse. And if we need to reach out to colleagues or find new people to fill those positions, you know, we need to feel confident that, you know, I don't know about you, but I know I've been asked, you know, in the past, well, send me links to people, send me, send me what they, you know, where I can find them online. So that's a huge thing, at least from my experience, where if the person doesn't have, it basically creates more work for me if a person doesn't have themselves represented well online. If I think they're amazing for the gig, then I have to sell them to, you know, a casting director or a composer. I have to sell them. And then I'm putting my name on the line for referring them. Because if, you know, my relationship of trust with that person who's calling me is basically, I'm going to bring them the best people. But if that person, if I can't back it up with digital representation, you know, of that person to say this person is great, I'm putting myself on the line. And if for a new person, I'm just not going to do it. I'm just not going to do it. You know, if I completely, if the person doesn't have a digital presence and I haven't worked with them and they're completely new to me, I'm not going to put myself on the line for that, because to me they haven't. Right. For me, they haven't put in the time and the effort to really make it easy for me to hire them. Like I don't want to have to sell them if I don't know them. Like I don't want the effort. I mean, like, I like meeting new people, but I don't want the responsibility of having to sell this person so hard when they haven't taken the time to really make themselves, you know, look good online. Do you know what I mean? Like they haven't represented themselves well, and I don't know them. It's like, well, how do I know you're going to show up on time? How do I know that you're going to fill out your paperwork right? How do I know, you know, like, why would I refer you if you're just going to send me a demo and then not, like, I can't refer anything else, you know, and I don't know you. So that's what it's like to me. But what about you?
It goes back to also, you know, making sure things are current. If people have black and white headshots still up, or I know that they're a certain age and their headshots are so old, that it's just a turn off. I wish that people out there, again, this business is so hard, and getting older is also hard, especially in the entertainment business. But I would really like people to embrace what they look like and have a representation of yourself in a headshot. And headshots can be very expensive. Don't forget, if you're listening out there, I hope you really are, you can do test shots. If you have a friend with a professional camera, or you pick up, like I have a Canon that takes beautiful shots, come over. Let's take some test shots. If you're looking for a new agent, you shouldn't have new headshots, because every new agent that signs you is going to want you to get new shots, especially if they're less than a year old. You should try and get new headshots every year and a half, 2 years at the max, because you change. You look different. And also, don't forget, when people are casting you, if you're using Actors Access, LA Casting, Casting Frontier, and the same casting director sees a new shot of you, even if it's better or worse, it re-ups their attention to you. Oh, they must be working. They must be out there. They must be pounding the pavement because they have new headshots. That is so important to remember. These casting directors see your headshots online all the time. And if it's a new headshot, they're going to look at you again, and they're going to look twice. It's going to catch their eye. So even if you do test shots, have a friend shoot you, go outside in natural light and just take a few shots and see which looks work for you. SAG-AFTRA also has a free branding workshop where you sit in a giant circle, you say your name, and people do these worksheets on you about what roles you could play, how old your age range should be. And your age range, people, when you put your age range on your IMDb or your resume, it needs to be 5 years. It's not, oh, I'm Laura Dickinson. I can play 26 to 47. It has to be 5 years, which equates to 4 years. I think I'm around 31 to 32 to 37. So that's 32, including 37. That's a total of 5 years. So really get specific in your headshots will help that.
Yeah. And how does that, so I'm just going to ask a kind of a deeper question about this. So a lot of singers and musicians, they're not going for the on-camera stuff. They're really going for, either live work or studio work. So maybe kind of switch that up a little bit. And if someone's not really looking to do on-camera or, on-screen work, how important is that digital representation? Again, for me, it's more or less I want to know you're working, or I want to know that, it's not the first gig you've done in 20 years. And I that might sound a little harsh, but even if you're in a community band or a community choir or in a and you're not standing back waiting for the phone to ring, you're active, even if you're teaching, and you have a shot with your students teaching, or a recital that you produced for them, or a live gig that you did that's current, because a lot of artists hire major photographers to come and shoot their live gigs. If you have photos like that, for me, that kind of better to have up than a black and white photo from 30 years ago. So right. I would say, that if you're not looking for the on-screen stuff, there's still a need to have current photos on you, and current, I would say, evidence of work. But, try to stay relevant with your digital presence, whatever you're looking to do. And also try to be a little more specific. I do like the idea about committing to what you do online. Like we said with actors, being within a 5-year age range is good. With musicians, we tend to get into this, well, I can play everything, or I can, singers even do it too. I can sing anything. And so you have this very ambiguous feel online, which sometimes is a little hard to recommend you for, because a lot of times, we have to cover specific roles. Like when I'm casting for, or helping Cirque du Soleil cast their shows or musicians for their shows, it's very specific and very a violinist who can ride a unicycle that can, sing,
Totally.
I mean, it's, there are really specific roles. And, so if I get the feel from you by going to a website or your fan page or your digital presence that really all you've done is kind of a classical orchestra, but you don't have any branching out of that, I don't know that I can market you for a Cirque du Soleil job. So, at any rate, that's kind of, I think we both kind of answered that question.
I want to ask you a question
Sure.
about something that's really important to me too, because I want to see if it's the same thing for you. Like in that particular situation where you have something really specific to cast, like especially for me, if it's like I need all these demos with this specific song with this specific style and it's due in 24 hours, are you okay with lesser quality recording or video? Or because a lot of people these days with how things go viral and just how hard it can be to keep your material current, a lot of people just, I see a lot of videos where people set their phone on their music stand while they're at a gig, and I can really hear you playing, or I can really hear you singing and see what you look like right now. And it's not all filtered or reverbed out or processed. And so I think that it's important to remember sometimes, if it's really who you are and it's a little bit more raw, I almost kind of, that's why I'm asking if you feel the same way. I'm almost kind of more impressed if it's super raw and real and good than if it's like super slick. How about you?
Oh, absolutely. Because that really shows me you're not scared of it and you're not trying to sell me on something that you really can't do. Like for Cirque du Soleil, specifically, we have to prepare the musician demos for the specific role. And there's a lot of requirements. It's really cumbersome. And so I think they understand the amount of work they're asking someone to do to just kind of send in a video audition. So, and they also, as part of the audition, they actually usually ask for a minute of the musician talking just into their iPhone to say, "Hi, I'm so-and-so, I play this. I would love to do the show because of this," because they really want to hear who the person is and get their essence. So it's really not polished. And yes, I'm very impressed when people are like at a gig, because a couple drummers have done that. They'll just set up, their iPhone on their music stand, and they'll play through the track that we need them to play through at their gig. A couple guitar players have done that too. So, it kind of goes both ways as to who has time, but I'm mainly interested in, can you do the job, and do I think I can put together a good package to represent what Cirque du Soleil is trying to fill, for you, so that you have the best chance of getting the job. Because ultimately, in a case like that, I don't have the casting authority. I'm just asked to kind of reach out to musicians and get their audition packages together. And then ultimately the directors make the decision on who goes in the show. So yeah, I'm with you there.
So digital representation is not the same thing as quality. Sometimes the quality can be, I don't want to say sacrificed, but the more raw it is, sometimes the better it represents you. I feel like that's important too.
Right. And the more current, I think it just so that it's current. Digital representation means not from 30 years ago, which some might be really great, but show that you've done something since then. So what turns you off when someone, you're at a union meeting, or you're just, at a gig, and someone walks up to you, or you get an email? What turns you off when someone, someone tries to reach out to you?
In a demo being too long, having musical intros, having breaks, but more than anything, over processing, auto tune, a lot of reverb, especially if you have anything that's, and trust me, I get it with the way pop music goes. Sometimes I have tracks that I've recorded for composers that want it all tuned and super, kind of like Cher's Believe, or they want the super tuning sound, but just that's not anything that should be on your demo or representation of you, because then we don't know if you can really sing in tune. Something happened to me the other day where I just was like, after you said that, I'm never going to hire you ever. I can't. The business is too hard, and there are too many people out there who are humble and realize that we had a show come in for Disney, and there are 6 roles to cast, and there were 4,000 auditions sent in. Think about the competition that's out there in some parts of the business. So if people are entitled and they say, I'm going to be in town, hire me. And I responded, actually, well, you can send me your demo to this email address. And, because I don't know what that person sounds like anymore. I know that they might have had some vocal problems in the past. And they're like, no, I'm your friend. Just hire me. I don't want to go through those procedures. And I'm like, well, that's what everyone does, even if we're friends or we're not friends. So there's a lot of people out there, and I get emails and demos every single day from people. So find a way to stand out, be really professional in your initial email contact and conversation, and your punctuation and your grammar and all that stuff. It's a turnoff when people get entitled or they get a little braggy about it. It's nice to include, these are a couple things that I've worked on recently, but not when it comes off in a bragging way. When I'm on gigs with people, being late, being loud, talking a lot, just inappropriate times for jokes, inappropriate comments, the job is a place to be really professional. I got some really good advice from one of my mentors. Just, you come in, you do your job, and you leave. It doesn't always have to be about making best friends with people. Everyone, if they can just come at it from a super professional standpoint, that's always my preference. I don't know, what turns you off when you're on a gig with somebody or a musician is there? A lot of times posture is really important. I've worked for Disney for 22 years now, and just standing with your arms folded. I was consulting with an instrumentalist in town, and they always stand with their arms folded, and it's a total blocked position, and they're already an intimidating personality. Think about your body language, think about your posture. I sometimes cross my arms and I immediately just fold my hands behind my back, because it can be a turnoff. Smiling when you come in, saying good morning to everyone you meet, especially I've been on set at Last Tycoon, saying hi to people, saying good morning, celebrity or crew, whoever, just be happy to be around. I know that life happens. I know that people get sick. I know that there's so many hard things to deal with as you go about your life, but just smile and have a good attitude and be somebody that you want to have around. There's a very close friend of mine that just will send me a text message, I hope you're having a good day, or somebody that your energy will come across if you're just putting it out there that you're happy and you want to be around people and you want to work at this. I think it's really important. What about you? What turns you off?
Well, I guess when people don't seem genuine, that's my biggest thing. I think when you're in the business long enough, of course, when people call you, you know what they're going to say, especially if it's a cold call. So-and-so told me to call you and talk to you about the business. Well, they're wanting you to help them get work, right? And I have no problem over the long term trying to keep that, in mind, especially if they come from a referral from a close friend or, a parent or something. And I do a lot of mentoring like that about the industry, and I really like that. But when you're on, so I already kind of have that perception when people call me cold, that, I do want to help. I do want to steer them in the right direction. The industry's rough. I've been out here over 20 years and I'm still here. I think everybody kind of thinks that.
Congratulations.
But I don't, yeah, well, you too. Yeah, we all kind of survived, and it's in the relationship building, I think, that's, led to both of our success, or what I would call a success of just still making a living, and being in the business. So what turns me off is when folks feel that the experience they have had is more impressive and important than mine to make my decision for me. Basically, like I've literally had people call me on the phone and say, "Hey, I just moved in town, and so told me to call you, and when are you going to hire me?" And it literally said that. And at the time, I was preparing a workshop for a college here about, kind of networking and what the business is like, and I offered them the opportunity to come to the workshop. And the fee for it was minimal. It was like a $25, stipend. It was at a college for basically a 3-hour workshop. And I recommended that they come and, meet me, and, because I wanted to respect who had referred them to me. So I said, well, why don't, and they're like, well, I'm not going to pay to come to a workshop. They literally said that to me. And it's like, okay. So, and then that person went on. So I hate to say it, but I kind of schooled them a little bit on, well, I'd really think about your attitude towards, you called me, I offered you an opportunity to meet me for something, in an environment, where other people are looking to work and figure out the business. And you're basically telling me that I should just hire you because so-and-so referred you, when I've got, 10 other people that do what you do that I know well. And I don't know that I could really refer you based on your reaction, to my making a suggestion. So that really turned me off. I also get turned off when I guess I get emails, random emails, and I try to have an empathetic heart because, look, I've been very lucky, but there have also been times when I make the phone calls myself. When I have to kind of market myself and buck under and say, hey, I need to reach out to people and let them know I'm still here, I'm off the road. And it's tough, So, when people email me and kind of say, hey, I'm available for work, and that's it, that's what kind of turns me off. So I've learned from that. I try to not be that way when I find myself having to kind of do the same thing. I like to try to be in touch with people and say, hey, I'm just want you to know I'm off the road. I saw that you were on this particular project, or congratulations on that. I try to dig a little deeper into what they're doing.
You read my
and
mind.
Really just,
exactly.
Yeah, and just be a little more congratulatory and more of a friend and a colleague, so that they don't feel that I'm just kind of being smarmy to call and say, hey, I'm available. However, I have, I think we all have, kind of come up with our way of pitching ourselves when we know that there's a job to be done and we think we're a good fit. I wouldn't ever contact somebody cold and say, hire me, I'm the one for the job. That language does not come out of my mouth. I more or less try to establish a rapport first and approach it from the, I'd like to throw my hat in the ring for this. And here's why. And at the very least, I've made a new friend, and in the best case scenario, I could be one of the candidates that you would consider. And that's it lets them know that I'm confident in my ability to deliver, but I'm not going to be crushed if, I don't go into the whole, I can't make my mortgage payment. I don't know. Like I've had that thrown at me too. And I know contractors deal with that as well. And I know that's it's a reality, but in this kind of game that we play every day, I think that's a turn off. We all make a choice when we become freelancers. We make a choice to do this. And if you aren't able to make ends meet, then you have the choice to go get a steady gig doing something that will allow you to be a little freer about the gigs that you take. If you don't, and so it also turns me off when people tell me it's not enough money.
Oh, that's a big thing. Asking about the pay. So the people
Yeah.
that are working the most, I can't even tell you the last time I asked when someone called me for a session, what does it pay? That's not important. I mean, I think that being grateful for the work and coming from a place, yes, I'm available. Like that should never be the first thing that you ask.
It's definitely a consideration, but there are ways that you can, I guess, be savvy about the work. I understand there are players, in town that have, they have such incredible careers, and in turn, most of the work they get, is at a certain, pay scale. And I get that. I totally do. And they may not want to, take a low paying gig. But the reaction I get, like some jobs you get called for, you want them filled by the best people and they don't pay well. They just don't. So the options are, well, I can call people I know that might consider taking this at a lower rate. And I usually do. But even when I get the reaction from those people that are kind of like, that doesn't pay enough, but then I call the really established person that in a million years I never thought would come and do this for, that pay. And they say yes.
Of course.
And it's like, huh. So it's a balance. It's a balance, and you can only practice at these types of things. But I would say if you're depending on where you are in your career, always be humble. But you can be confident and be humble. And if a lot of really well-known players, if it pays too low, they never say it. They'll just say, I'm sorry, I have another gig. End of story. No one feels bad then. Do you know what I mean? Like there's no
of course.
putting
I'm
it
so
on
sorry.
me.
I wish I was available that day. That's an easy way to get out of it.
Exactly. It's not, well, that doesn't pay enough,
You're strapped. You're strapped
Yeah.
for money that month, and it's
Right.
Saturday night, and you want to see if something else comes in. There's
I
no
get it.
harm or shame in saying, "I wish I was available that night. Thank you so much for thinking of me. Please try me again sometime."
Yeah. Don't be the guy that's like, that just isn't enough pay, and I don't think I'm going to be able to do it unless you want to sever the relationship with that person. Like if you don't want to hear from them again, then
that happened to me the other day. Somebody was sending me all their stuff. Please hire me. I love it. It's somebody that I've hired to work for. I also work for Michael Bublé, who's on a little bit of a hiatus right now, but I hired them for some work with him, and he kept sending me stuff. I would love to work for you more. And then I sent him on, I have a gig for you. I have a gig for you. And then they're like, nope, sorry, it's not enough money. I'm like, I'm not going to call you again. Then why are you? Because I don't know their and sometimes even with your digital representation, certain times it's just something is not right to where you feel like you don't know them enough yet, and you want to throw them a gig to where you want to get to know them. Don't forget about that. Like maybe it's not the most high profile thing, but it's something to where I don't feel like my name is on the line as much, so I can take a chance on you here. And then,
right.
It's not enough money. So you lost me, kid. You lost me.
Right. Good lesson.
The first
to
thing
learn.
I do.
Yeah. So what's the first thing you do when someone sends you a demo? You keep it.
The first thing I don't do is when there's a link. I have my email set up to where I have a specific, if anyone is listening out there, I always listen to demos every single day. I know how hard it is to put yourself out there for the first time and make these cold calls. I always get around to it, even if it takes me a while to get back to you. I have a specific email for people to send material to. And I know that email does not kick out files. It's submissions@lauradickinson.com. And I use it as like an archive for those people that are looking for work, or when I have a project come in, I'll just go through that folder again. I also have everything stored in a separate database with different genres and different styles and what they do. There's a lot of different types of singers out there. So the first thing I don't do when it gets sent to me is I don't always go to links, because you never know where people are or what they're doing when that email comes in. You know, maybe I'm in a meeting, maybe I'm in a session, maybe I'm on the phone or whatever. And it's always easier for me if that file is right there. I just touch it on my iPhone. I press the play button. Sometimes I won't even listen in headphones. If it comes in my car and I stop driving and I'm parked, I'm just like, oh, just let me listen to this real quick. And you know, sometimes in the first few seconds, like, oh, that would be somebody that's good for this, or that person is more suited for this, or this is what they're about. So the first thing I don't do usually is click on a link. If the file is there and I have like a few minutes to take just to listen to it, it's much easier for me if the file is right there in my email, and then it's there for reference. I can save it. You can save it to Dropbox right on your phone. So what else is the first thing I do? I look if they have a website and I've listened to their demo after that. I'll go right to their website. I'll see what they're about, try and get the essence of them. I'll go to IMDb sometimes and see if they have any on-camera, off-camera credits. I'll see if their resume is up there. Yeah, I'll see if they have an agent. I'll see if their contact info is readily available. It's when
so you do kind of look into them a little bit. Yeah, I mean, so for everyone to really just realize that, you know, sending in a demo to someone, it actually puts work on them to get to know you. So always keep that in mind. You know, it's time out of everyone's so busy. So you think you're slammed, the people that hire you or you want to hire you, they're slammed as well. They're just slammed with different things. And so as anything you can to make that process easier, from labeling your demo with your name, not like, you know, my great songs or something, you know, that is helpful. Any little thing you can do, it might sound so minute, but you know, it is so helpful, especially when you're trying to keep things organized and straight.
Labeling your files is so important. People send me, you know, so-and-so real, like just the first name and a real. That doesn't do me any good. What happens to that file if I save it and it gets put in the wrong place? Or if I go to my search box in my Finder on my Mac and I just type your first name, it'll automatically come up. If you have your name and like, just really clearly label your files. And if you have a Mac, I highly recommend you go to your Finder and push the space bar to preview your file and see what actually comes up. If you did it in GarageBand or Logic or Pro Tools, like the artist name, the album name, that can all be a way to put your contact information in. Somebody sent me a submission the other day, and in the artist and the album, it had their name, it had their website, it had their phone number. And I was so impressed because it's all right there for you. You have to.
It's impressive when it's right. Yeah, it's impressive when it's right. When it's no work for someone to figure out, it's so impressive. So what's the first
for people to contact you?
Right. So what's the first thing you do when you get a job contracting singers or voice actors?
Oh, I take a breath. I take a breath. It depends on the situation, because if the session is farther out, I don't have to rush. If I have to rush and I know it's a really specific thing, like there's an actress we need to have dubbed for, sometimes I'll send an email out right away to the SAG-AFTRA Singers Yahoo group, and people will put the word out to other people. They'll forward on my email. Sometimes I'll reach out to other contractors and say, look, I'm looking for this 7-year-old kid who's really amazing. Do you have anybody? And then sometimes, depending on the job, I'll go to an agent, a voiceover agent. A lot of the voiceover agents have kids. They have singers. They have voice actors who sing. And some of the jobs that I contract will involve voice acting and singing. So it just depends.
Yeah, you use your
on the type of
resources.
job.
Yeah, so it's kind of like you use your own resources, but you also reach out to others who may have other resources. So it's not like there's somewhat of an attitude of, well, this person only uses these people, and this person only uses these people. But most really good contractors, or people who try to hire other people, they just want the best people for the job. So, like, don't give up if you feel like someone else does what you do, and that there's no way you're going to get hired because, there's no way that this person is never going to, be the right person for somebody. It it never hurts. Like I've also been on sessions or involved with directors who, the same actors audition over and over for different shows, and they kind of get a little bit weary of seeing the same person, like for the same, like it's a lead, and they only audition for leads. And so they want fresh people to look at and audition. They don't want to cast this person again in a show. Not that they don't like the person, they just want a fresh take, a fresh,
of course,
idea. So, it's always put your best foot forward. Everyone is always doing the same thing. So you want to put your best foot forward because you want to get the best people.
Yeah. It's something that's important to me too. Don't forget, like you were saying, people are slammed. Life happens. The business is very hard. I totally get it. One of my mentors gave me advice that actually worked. If you email me cold, I don't like to do emails well, not me personally, but like if I'm putting myself out there and trying to contact a business colleague, or cold calling myself, or sending something for me to a composer to consider me for whatever. I don't like to do emails on a Monday. I don't like to do emails on a Friday. It should be before lunch or after lunch, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And don't be afraid if you haven't heard back in a week, send that email again. Send the same email again. Hey, I just wanted to make sure this came through. I know you're probably super busy. Let me know when you have a second. Send it again. Like if you sent that email on a Tuesday, next Tuesday, follow up and send it again. If you don't hear back within another week, take a week off. Then send the email again. It's really helpful to me personally if you remind me about things, because your email gets flooded. You're inundated with things. You might be working. You might be on a set. You never know what's happening with that person. Social media is a good way to kind of check on people. Like they post about their gig, go to their gigs, be supportive, figure out how you can support your people in your community that have performances, or like you said, workshops. Like really connect with these people, and don't be afraid to follow up on your emails. I appreciate it because, oh yeah, I forgot to get back to that person because they sent me their demo. I really need to listen to it. Just give a gentle reminder. There's no harm. And then it also shows that you're professional and you do follow up with people.
Yeah, and I do appreciate there are a few folks that I know and I really respect that send out kind of a quarterly email. Like, here's what I've been doing. They don't really push themselves on you. They just kind of say, hey, this is kind of my update. And I really like that. I think that's a great, it's not pushy. It's not saying, hey, hire me. It tells me that they've been active and busy, and they include everything in it, like what they, who they're singing with, if they've done any work, if they're teaching, what they've, if they're taking a class, they kind of include, so I get to know them a little bit. And I like that a lot. So, the emails don't just have to be, especially to someone you don't know, they don't really have to be, I've done this, here's my resume. It can be a little more conversational, a little more like you're trying to get to know someone,
Of course, that's a really important tool that people don't think about. Actually running yourself like a business and having an email list and sending out, your mailing letter every once in a while. You don't want to inundate people, but once a month, every other month, like this is what I'm up to, or I have this live performance if you want to come out. And then that's one of the best ways to get to know people for me, like seeing what they really sound like live. But don't forget, you can take all of your emails and go to MailChimp or use something through your website host to make your own personal mailing list. I think it's really important to have that.
Yes, for sure, your own connections in the industry, but how you nurture them is kind of building the relationship them, other than just here's the email, here's the marketing email where I'm going to send you a demo and hope that you hire me. You kind of need to, in this day and age, you need to be a little more, it's not just all about listing things that you've done. I think I want to know who people are. I want to know, are you teaching somebody? I want to know, are you advocating for something in music? I don't know. I like to know about people, I like to know about their thought process,
Of course.
So I think we talked about this a little bit, but how often are you asked to provide website links, audio demos for a professional you are submitting for hire?
Recently, all the time. It really does depend on the job. If I'm hiring a group of singers to sing on Elena of Avalor, I don't need to prove to the production team who I'm hiring. They usually on those types of jobs, it's just you have a group come in and that's that. When I did a choir session for Last Tycoon, I had certain people come in and we just showed up. But when I'm doing specific soloist things, all the time. And I'll send out an email saying, I really need these demos back within 24 hours. So yeah, and those times I don't make the decision. Usually the musical director, the conductor, the composer, the whole production team, like recently on Last Tycoon, the production is very involved in the selection of singers. They want to make sure that they know what they're getting and approve. And I'll send, 50 to 100 demos sometimes, and I'll try and like whittle them down, but I still, this is important to me. Like the people that I think are no's, I'll still send them in like a folder at the bottom. Like these are the ones that I think aren't right for this job. But just in case you hear something that I don't, I can't tell you how many times that I'll think this person is going to get the job and production picks someone totally different. So yeah, most recently it's been a lot. And the time that it takes for me to contact you and you to get that demo back to me, that's when it comes down to the point. Like, I don't care if you just sit in your car and sing into your iPhone. That's really fine. It's almost better that you get it in right away instead of waiting until like a few minutes past the deadline or tomorrow. Like it's almost better that you get it in right away and quickly. I'm not sure if I take a little small laptop with me everywhere I go, and I take a little small Apogee mic, the 96K. I keep it in my bag all the time so I can record in the car if I need to. I can do my voiceover auditions. I can send demos to contractors that need something last minute. And there's a program out there that, see, the whole digital thing can be intimidating to some people, but it can be really simple if you just keep an open mind, ask people for help. I'm always happy to help people. There's a program out there, I'm not sure if you've heard of it, called Twisted Wave. You can take your iPhone recordings, text it to yourself, and you can edit it right there. It's like a one waveform track, and it's so simple to get around. A lot of people are intimidated by Pro Tools and Logic and Cubase and Digital Performer and all those things with the bells and whistles. But Twisted Wave is so simple once you get the hang of it, and you can turn things into WAV files, AIF files, MP3 files with the touch of a button. A lot of people don't realize that if your file is not labeled correctly, if a contractor asks you or a voiceover agent asks you to label your file and you don't really pay attention, a lot of times it gets deleted. And think about how much work that is for the person that's trying to hire you. If they have to relabel 100 files, it takes forever, and it's so cumbersome. And like, oh, you forgot to put a space between your first and last name, and that's how I asked you to do it. And it's like the tiniest little things. Just follow directions. And a lot of people will not even open your files if they're not MP3s. If you send in a WAV file and it's 40 megabytes when I'm expecting to have like a bunch of little 1 and 2 megabyte files, and I have to drag your file and turn it into an MP3, it's important. Also, if you record something on your iPhone, it automatically turns into an M4A, and some agents will not take it. They'll be like, nope, delete. If it's not exactly perfect, it gets deleted. So don't forget to follow directions.
Yes, because you have to always remember there is always somebody else. There's always somebody else. So if you don't get the basic stuff right, unfortunately, we all come to this realization there will always be somebody else. So that's not to intimidate anybody. It's not to say that no one will ever work. But it's just kind of I would say, incentive to make sure that don't make the reason that you didn't get a job because you didn't label a demo right, or because you didn't have your links right, or because you didn't have an up-to-date website or resume. Don't make the reason that you lost out on a job because you weren't up to speed. That's basically, moral of the story for me. Where's my next? Okay, so we've kind of covered a lot of this, and I don't mean to be redundant. We're going a little long, but what's your list of givens when you're contacted by someone who wants you to hire them? Like, what's a given? Just like 3 things that are a given.
You
If
have a
someone
current
says, hire
demo.
me.
You have a current demo. Your website is in order. If your IMDb is up to date and current, and there's at least a picture on a resume up there, those are the things that I can take to a producer or composer and kind of prove you. I think it's all the things that we are talking about: getting your digital presence together, getting your YouTube page together, just all the things that you need to see. If they're lined up in an order, it just makes my job so much easier. It's everything. If the list is everything that we just talked about, your resume, your demo is current. Someone sent me a demo the other day that I literally could tell that they had a cassette tape transferred over to their MP3 demo. That doesn't do you any good. I'd almost rather hear you singing acoustically and playing with the guitar or something. So all the stuff that we've been talking about, having your digital presence together and current, that's the list.
Yeah, and for musicians, I'd say the givens for me. I mean, musicians are a little different in that, they just want you to hire them for work. They may not have a website. They may not have, they may just kind of have a resume of experience. So my list of givens for more like musician types would be, if you're going to contact me, you have a referral or have a recent, like something recent that you can refer me to that you have worked on, and what you've learned from it, even if you're teaching, if you're trying to make a career change, that type of thing. Like just the givens are you're being active, and if you don't have a current demo, you tell me that you're working on one. If you don't have a current picture, you're going to say, I am currently, in the process of, kind of recreating my marketing material. And then I'm not so like turned off, because if you send me, if it's a given, if you send dated things without any explanation or without any, and just like hire me because I did this really wonderful thing 20 years ago, you're not really staying in step with the current trends. And unfortunately, we're all under the gun, even in a pit orchestra, playing for a show. The producers of the show want the best musicians in the world sitting in that pit, supporting their production that they've paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to do, so, or to create. So, at every level, just professionalism and at least the desire that it's a given that your desire is to try to stay as current as possible, because there are a lot of free tools. And if you need help, reach out to me for help and say, I'm a musician who would love to work with you. I realize I don't have these materials together. Can you help me? Or would you sit down with me for an hour? I'd pay you for your time, sit down with me for an hour and tell me how to put all my experience into a demo. Or, you know what I mean? Like, help me represent myself better. Because I do a lot of mentoring like that. Anyway. So
that's important what you said. I don't want that to breeze by. A lot of people ask you for your time and your help, and think about it like paying for a consultant, paying for a consultation, or paying for a voice lesson, or paying for, your saxophone teacher to spend an hour of their time with you. When you go take the time out of your schedule to help people, I think that more people should be aware that there might need to be some compensation involved in that, because you're coming to somebody for a service. It's different than, let's sit down for a quick coffee. I would love to pick your brain just for a second. But if like you take the time out of your schedule to like really do a consultation with somebody, I think that like for me personally, if I were to come to you and say, can you look at my stuff and see if you just find anything, like I would absolutely pay you for your time. Like I think that people need to realize that we're all, it's all a business, and that what you have just shared today, like that's all so valuable. And like you said, that takes a 20-year career to build up that knowledge, and your knowledge is very valuable to me and to a lot of people. So don't forget about that.
Thank you. And to people listening, I think in the new digital era, you know, I know a lot of musicians who have kind of probably had a pretty substantial career. They really feel kind of left out of this digital transition, and I don't want this to be kind of something that de-incentivizes you. You know, it's more or less like reach out to people like me, to people like Laura. If you feel that you're behind and need to kind of get the ball rolling, find that fire within yourself and just know it's just a sign of the times. You know, 20 years ago, it was the black and white headshot, and, you know, and it was the audio cassette. It was that. So you were current then. You know, nowadays, it's just up the ante a little bit. And so there are folks, you know, in the industry that, you know, if you need help putting those things together, will help you. But understand that it does take time out of their day. Everyone is so busy right now. And, you know, if they charge you, you know, a little bit to sit down with you to do that, I wouldn't begrudge them that. I wouldn't be angry about that. You know, look at it as a gift that they're going to give you the time and give you some tools that you're going to walk away with being current, you know.
Yeah, it's just like taking a lesson.
The value of that in today's market is really, you can't really put a price on that. You know, they're giving you this marketing tool which allows you to work in the current environment. So I would maybe take that to heart a little bit and not keep putting it off, but really reach out to someone who can, whether it's me or Laura or someone you know, that can help you kind of get your digital house together, I would say. So moving on, our last couple of questions here so we can wrap up. When you started, how did you build your network and how did you build relationships?
My most valuable connection that changed my life came from meeting someone in an orchestra pit. And I was singing, I was singing from the pit at one of my jobs that I've had since 2004 down at the Pageant of the Masters. And it came from meeting a guitar player who happened to be a composer, and it changed my life. So it's just like I was saying, you know, maybe it's the singer next to you. Maybe it's the musicians in the orchestra at your musical theater performance, you know, just taking the time to find out who people really are and connect with them. And, you know, I think being a good person and putting that good energy out there, not like, I want to work, hire me type of a thing, but more about getting to know who people are and supporting them, supporting the people in your community. That's been very, very valuable. It's harder to connect on social media. Certain people don't like social media as much, and they don't use it as much for networking. So that can always be touchy. But when I first started out, it was more, you know, Facebook didn't exist. So it was more like just meeting people and getting out. Like I still go out and see live music as much as I can, and meeting people at their gigs, at their performances, you know, and taking time to try and connect with them. I think meeting people in the community was the best way for me to network and build my relationships when I was starting out. And I still do it. I still try and go out as much as I can to support people's live gigs and performances, music opportunities. And I still take workshops. I still take classes. I pay, like you were talking about your workshop that was $25. I took a workshop that was thousands and thousands of dollars, and it was one of the best experiences because you're never too far in your career to still keep working on your craft. A lot of instrumentalists, they practice an hour a day. How many singers practice and sing an hour a day still? You know, that's really important.
Yeah, I think, you know, I got hired as a music supervisor. It was my first kind of industry job when I moved out here. And, you know, that was a 24/7 round the clock job. And I learned what I didn't want to be in the industry by doing that. However, the folks that I met at my first job, between that and then when I ended up quitting there and deciding to go back for my doctorate at USC, the people I met at that job, and then the keyboard administrator at USC were essentially the people that set me up for the career that I've had. The folks that I networked with or that I worked with at that music supervisor job, of course, they went on to do other jobs. And being that we all knew each other from that experience, I'd get the first call, if something I would be able to do in their other jobs. At USC, I didn't end up staying there and finishing my doctorate because I got referred from there so much about going on tour. And one tour came along that I was referred by the keyboard administrator. I used to joke with him and tell him he should be getting 10%, of my career. But he would refer me for everything because he knew that he could refer me and I would do a professional job. I'd represent the school well, and that I was the right person for the job. And so one call came in one day for a pretty big tour, and they basically hired me sight unseen, and my first job was in Mexico City with them playing at the National Auditorium. And so it's really your network, how you build relationships is being a friend and being good at what you do and being humble and not expecting people to refer you. I guess that's been my tactic. How do I network? I just want to get to know people. I like people. I don't expect people to give me anything when I meet them. That's not the reason I meet them. I love musicians. I love their minds. I love their talent. I love learning about their musical experience in life. I just kind of have this spiritual connection, for a lack of a better word to describe it, to the career that I have. And I love talking to people about that, and their connection to it. So how did I build relationships was really out of my love of what I do, and kind of having this common ground of that love with other people. So I don't believe other on rare occasions where, people felt that I was pushing my way into a job. I think they just believed I really love what I do and that I was the right person and that I was confident that I could do it. But that's kind of I don't know how well that tactic would work now, but I still work. And people still call me because I'm not a threat to anyone. I feel like everybody who has talent, if they work on themselves and grow their relationships, they will eventually work as a result. The music business is very friendship oriented and very, there aren't a lot of people that you can call your friends out here if you think about it, but the ones that you do, you work with, if that makes sense. That's been my experience. So I always wanted friends. I always wanted friends more so than I wanted gigs. That was my approach. That's kind of been the key. So for me, and what about you? And what's been the key to your kind of relationship building that's resulted in you kind of constantly working?
The key to my relationship building, it goes back to what you're saying about being a friend and supporting people. I think if someone that you're trying to have a relationship with knows that you're there for them in a way that's not driven by just working, I think that's really important. Yeah, being a friend, being supportive to the community, making sure that you keep in touch with people from a place that comes from being humble and just being there and being supportive. It's not easy out there. I know how hard it is when you got to make the bills or you have a family to support, and just checking in sometimes can be a good thing. Like I said about my friend that always just checks in, it's kind of like a calming thing to know that you have people out there in your life that are doing the same thing that you're doing, or pounding the pavement, or doing really great. There's always a way that you can build people up around you. So just taking it one day at a time.
Sharing the experience and sharing the struggle sometimes, and everyone that I know that I'm close to, everyone has highs and lows in their career out here. It, like, on the surface, it may seem like everything is always up, but that is not always the case. Everyone has their hills and valleys. Everyone hits times where they're like reassessing their decisions, and that's really common ground for everybody, to kind of take down the facade a little bit, and just be real. That's what I find is more effective with people, connecting to. And, you may not get this gig, but it's always about the next gig. Think long term. Think of, 20 years, like a case in point. So one of the music editors I worked with at that post-production house as a music supervisor, he's now an Emmy and Grammy winning producer for the Eagles. And so, back then, and we had this really wonderful exchange. He's one of my best friends now, and he's in Austin, but he was touring with the Eagles. He also tours with them as a keyboard player. And he was in Dallas, and I was in Dallas with Wicked. And we had this moment of, like, we met, after his show was done. And then after my show was done, we met at, I think his hotel. And we're sitting back going, who would have thought 10 years ago we were sitting in this, editing suite at this post house in LA? Look at where we are right now. And what about this life, man? You're like, who would have ever predicted this? So, because I never came at him with a, what can you do for me attitude. I was just so happy for him when he got the call to start working with them, and it's developed into this long-ranging, career-changing thing for him. But, it's just, that's relationship building. Just starts where everyone is where you are. Start with where you're at. People that are ahead of you, they have their own group of friends, and you may get into that circle, but start with where you're at. Start with the people. Be good to the people that you're with, that are where you are, because they're not going to be there forever, and neither are you. And so if you build your community from right where you are, I think, long term, that has really far-reaching effects. So, okay, we're going to talk about social media for a second. And this, I have my own views on, social media things, but what's important, do you think, for professionals to keep in mind regarding their social media?
Keep it current, even if you're just, if I go to someone's Twitter page and they haven't tweeted in like a few years, it's kind of like, ugh, everyone has their own, the three main platforms: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. If you have all three of them, if you have Twitter and Instagram, your @ handles should match, because there's a way to link up tags with, if you share things, they tag other people across the board. You should try and think about how that branding affects you. If, one Twitter thing says one thing and one Instagram thing says another thing, it's like, they should probably be the same, I think. And just keep them current, even if you send out something once a week, and everybody has their own, their go-to platform that they'll have the biggest following on, because it's different for everyone, and everyone likes each individual platform more than another. It's kind of a personal preference thing. I love Twitter because I can connect with my composers on my sessions. I can connect with all the producers at Last Tycoon. I can follow all the directors and the writers and the people that sometimes you don't see on these projects. And the music department can be very insular. There's a lot of shows that I work on where you don't get invited to the wrap party. They don't even know who you are or what you do. So the more you can try and connect with people on social media, and just sometimes it's just about reminding them that you're there. I mean, even as a contractor, you forget about people. And that's what, with that, it goes back to checking in and just kind of being there for people. People do forget. I think that there's a very hot topic in the session singing community about not posting about your sessions. And there's a certain old school kind of a way about, you don't want to post about when you're when you're working on a big film call and there's other people that don't get that gig. But then there's the other side of the business to where you want your contacts and your clients to know, like, wow, I just sang on this movie, or wow, I just sang on this TV show. So I think that there's a balance that has yet to be found about that. And that is kind of a question I have for you.
Well, yeah. So being out here as long as I have, there's definitely a political climate. But here's the thing. You know, if it's not your gig and the person who hired you doesn't want you to post something, don't do it. Just, it's not your gig. Sooner or later, and a lot of times, you know, the work we do is before something's released. So there's a lot of like secrecy and privacy from the studio point of view, where they don't want the word out there that, you know, they had this session. So you kind of have to honor that. And it's, you know, the folks, the contractors in place that have to hire, you know, big groups of people, they're kind of putting their name on the line that nothing will get leaked, right? You know, and so is the composer and hiring the contractor. So there's a whole kind of political system. I think that when you're starting out, you know, it's cool to say gig, but, you know, there are ways to say things online without saying it, you know? And so if it's not your gig, then you have to honor who hired you and what they want on the gig. That's, you know, bottom line. If you want a gig like that and you want to be able to be posting everywhere what you're doing, then find that for yourself. Like, make that your goal. Make that you're in control of that. Because I think, you know, put it on your webpage, put it on, you know, an email. It forces you, I think,
to get creative.
The lazy way to do it. Yeah, I think the lazy way to do it is on social media. You know, it's not really it's not really marketing you where you want to be hired, because if someone was looking at you for doing a job, and you had to get hired through someone else, obviously you don't have a direct contact with them. So if, you know what I mean? So I feel like, my view is, if it's not your job, if you didn't hire, if you're not in charge, and the person in charge or contractor in charge says, I don't want you guys to do that, that's the way they've run their business. And you have to, in my view, if you want to work, you have to honor that. If they start sharing it later, once the release comes out, which I know happens, then yes, share away and participate in that. But, you know, in the beginning, it's like this anxiousness of, you know, oh my gosh, I got to tell everybody. Well, what happened before social media? No one knew you had sessions, you know, like what? So, you know, these folks have had incredible careers, and so they did it without social media. Right. So you kind of have to, in my view, you know, I think honor that if you want to keep working. If you want to start your own thing, like, make it your goal, create some other way, you know, like, what good is it? All, in my view, I'm sorry, I'm kind of ranting here, but in my view, a lot of what you're doing on social media now, it's like, you know, hey, it's me. Hey, it's me. I raised my hand. I did this today. I did that today. And that's fine to an extent. But when it's your stuff, if it's someone else's stuff, you kind of have to be sensitive to it. And there are other ways. Yeah. That's not going to get you work. Sharing on social media is not going to get you work as a session musician. You know, your personal relationship with the contractors is going to get you work. So focus on that. You know, focus on, if you have, you know, information from that session, or you're trying to communicate, make it part of an email you're sending to a contractor, you know, that you just recently worked on this. Make it go towards something. Posting stuff in the abyss of Facebook, Instagram, and social media, to me, you know, if someone doesn't want you to, and being upset, you know what I mean? I don't know. That's my feeling right now on it. You know,
there's also, people don't understand what happens behind the scenes sometimes. And it might not be because you're a wonderful singer or a terrible singer or something about your performance. Something else might happen that you don't know about, or that is not in your control. Yeah. I've had this happen so many times, where some work that you do or that you hire someone else to do or whatever, it doesn't exist in the final project. So it's always good to wait to see what actually happens, or the show gets canceled, or, you know, they change the character. Like I had something happen to me where it was like one of the biggest jobs of my life, and there were 3 different production teams. And because the last production team came in and was like, nope, we're changing your character, you're fired, basically. So you never know what's going to happen. So, you know, it's always good to wait till the release and to check in with your contractors. And there's also the other side of it, to where casting people are looking at you for online, for on-camera things, and they look at how many followers you have, and it sucks, but it's true, and it's happening a lot. So some people are looking for ways to use those big projects that they're on to hashtag and grow their following. And so it's a very slippery slope that you got to navigate carefully from a humble place.
Yeah, and I think that in today's current industry, I think there's a real need for, at least in the beginning, for an individual who wants to be in music to really decide what that means in terms of your career. Like right now, what are you going to focus on? I'm going to focus on studio work for a year. I'm going to focus on playing live for a year. I'm going to focus on camera work for a year. Do you know what I mean? I think there's more of a need of being specific about what you want to do, because then a lot of these actions kind of take care of themselves. You know, you don't have to be constantly juggling. I think starting out, trying to accommodate everything and everyone, and then being upset that, you know, this part of your life can't, you know, help this other part of your life. I think that's it's kind of, it's hurting you really, because you're just kind of spinning around like a wheel and seeing what hits, you know. I think a more moderate approach would be, you know, take the first step, focus, you know, 3 months, 6 months on a certain area of your career. And then if you get called for other work, great, but like focus on growing that one part of your career and growing that one part of your presence online. Yeah, I've talked to my friends that are actors, singers, and you know, they go to casting workshops, and casting directors are telling them that they have to, you know, be tweeting every day and have, you know, at least this X amount of Twitter followers, you know, to be considered for acting jobs. Now it's like, holy cow, I'm glad I'm not an actor. So yeah, that's certainly relevant. That's why I think, like, just be specific in all these decisions you make. You know, I think there's a need to stop throwing everything up at the wall and seeing what sticks, because that's what the internet is. It's everyone throwing everything up against the wall. I think the way you move forward is step by step, being really strategic about how you present yourself online, what your goal is. And then once you reach maybe that first goal, like I want to be hired for 3 sessions in the next year, you know, and get in with that crowd, then that helps you make decisions moving forward. Then maybe you get more comfortable about sharing things on social media and say, oh, this last year I was focusing on this, but I actually did these other things, you know. So it's, and then people are like, oh, wow. And they start to look at you, you know, a little more like professionally.
Of course.
I don't know if that makes sense to you, but that's kind of my take on it.
Very helpful information.
So we talked about this a little bit too, but, you know, always, what's important, do you think, for professionals to keep in mind regarding their craft?
I think that more vocalists should think about themselves as instrumentalists and realize that it's just like going to the gym. And if you don't do it, you're going to get out of shape. And you should be practicing. You should be, I go through my warm-ups every day. I make sure that my instrument is in shape. And I also make sure that I know my instrument. I know exactly where my breaks are. I know which part of the staff is good. I know which part of it is like meh sometimes in certain styles. Like I just really know my instrument. And I think that that's essential when you're behind the microphone to really make sure you know who you are and what you're good at, and take your classes, do your warm-ups, make sure that you're singing every day, make sure that you're performing as much as you can and really in shape. It's different for instrumentalists. What do you think about that for them?
Yeah, well, I think it's important to practice every day. You know, I am guilty of not practicing every day. But I walk down the stairs and my piano kind of greets me like an old friend every day, and it's like, why aren't you playing me today? And I feel it when a little time goes by and I haven't. But I'm always listening to music. I'm always like in my head, I'm practicing. I kind of learned this technique in college to practice like watching music in my head. And I kind of learned it as a kid. My one of my first piano teachers that really I have to credit a lot of the my success in like the discipline of piano, the discipline of classical music, and too is she would ask me if she'd have me memorize something, but then her memorization was I'd walk in the next lesson and she'd say, okay, play me page 10, staff, the second staff, the left hand. And I'm like, what? She's like, yeah, you've memorized it, right? So I had to learn to kind of have this, way of picturing music in my head. And especially like left hand, because if you're right-handed like me, your left hand on the piano, it kind of goes along, but that was really a huge lesson for me, always pay attention. So, in your craft, I think you always have to be pushing yourself. I go back to my recital pieces in college all the time. Can I still play this thing? Can I still play that run? I practiced that for 3 months. Can I still do it? So I'm constantly, there's like go-to pieces that I'm not really challenged a lot in my current career as far as what I can have the facility to do. So I have to find ways to keep myself doing that. So I think that's a little different than in the singing world. You probably get challenged a lot differently than I do. But I do some singing, but none that would challenge me the way that you are. But that's kind of, I think I keep myself, can I play this a different way, or can I still play this? How could I play this differently, or how 20 years later do I feel it differently? This phrasing or this something. So
of course.
Yeah, I think just being a musician, like, don't forget that that's what you do, and your connection to your hands and your instrument is very intimate when you're a musician.
Of course.
So always keep that current. Oh, okay. So, we're going to wrap up in a few minutes here. So how important, is it to you to get credit for your work, and how relevant are credits when you consider hiring someone? I heard you mention IMDb.
How important is it is different than how often it happens. And it's something that is a hot topic right now with the wages and working conditions at SAG-AFTRA. A lot of people in the industry do not know that when SAG-AFTRA vocalists are hired in an 80-voice choir, in a 100-voice choir, in a 3-voice ensemble, we're paid as principal performers. And if any other principal performer in the industry did not get a screen credit, it would be unheard of. People in movies that work on catering, the people that have babies during production, they get a screen credit. It's a really hot topic right now. Even if you just do the smallest little additional voice acting role, and you say 3 sentences, you get a screen credit. And a lot of that comes down to the vocalist or the contractor knowing how to dance about getting that accomplished. And it is not an easy thing. My voice has been on TV for I don't know how many years, every single day now, since probably about 2008-ish. And I have never once gotten a screen credit for any of the animation stuff that I've done. And it's just because that particular corporation, they just don't do it. And it's really hard. It's really hard. It's a hard dance to do. But like for The Last Tycoon, you go to the producers as professionally as you can and say, look, this is what I'm doing for this production. And there's usually a screen credit involved. Is that something that can be considered this time? I would be really, really grateful and be helpful to my career. And yeah, the credits are relevant. And a lot of people don't understand how to work IMDb, but anybody can add anything they want. And most of it gets approved, which results in a lot of the things on IMDb being incorrect, but there is a lot of correct stuff on there too. So you can add your own credits to IMDb when you work on something. And I go to that before I'll say, well, you sang in this TV show, but they didn't credit you. Like that, I know it doesn't happen for an instrumentalist too. I think that really should change. And I try and connect with the producers that I have relationships with, because it's up to the producer's discretion. That's something that's really important to furthering the art in our community and just what we do for a living. So it's relevant, but it doesn't always happen that you get screen credit, but you can always control the credits on your digital platform, on your IMDb, you can actually add an actual resume onto IMDb. So yes, they're relevant, but I understand how rare it is.
Well, and I guess I'll just kind of transition into, what the work that we're trying to do on behalf of the music community with, ProMusicDB and music credits. Now, music credits are kind of like a musician's calling card. And, in the age of digital, everyone has, it's like going to all these websites to have to update. If you play on an album, you have to like argue with All Music that you played on it. And then you might do film sessions and that might be on IMDb. And then Discogs might have some stuff. And it's just kind of all over the place and random. And I think it's not coming from the artists and their member organizations either. And that's what we've been trying to, I guess, ease the membership organizations, SAG-AFTRA, the AFM, ASCAP, BMI, into helping us kind of consolidate a representation for musicians online that we know is pretty legitimate. Like you said, IMDb is incomplete. There's some right stuff. There's some wrong stuff. All Music, the same way. There's some right stuff. There's some wrong stuff. But the demands on the digital musician to have to run around, you have to get your demos updated. You have to get your websites updated. You have to now to have like a digital presence, you have to like run all over the internet and make sure all these other websites are updated. And it's like, you need another person for this,
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to make everyone aware that we're trying to address this problem. We are endorsed by the AFM and the SAG-AFTRA singer community. We're building archives, and that's kind of how we're looking at it, digital presence. And once we reach a certain volume, we really hope to be the source that we can push out to these other sources like IMDb and AllMusic and Discogs, but that the, musicians' lives and singers' lives are not completely represented in IMDb. They're not completely represented in AllMusic. They really need a database that can represent their career, whether it be in film, live, just in albums. There really needs to be a database hub for that information for musicians, and that's what we're trying to create with ProMusicDB. I just want everyone out there to know that we're a fiscally sponsored nonprofit project. And you can create your own profile page, which can be public and be like your resume. We have a current project starting in a couple weeks where we're raising money to basically archive about 300,000 music credits of some pretty well-known LA musicians. Jimmy Haskell being one of them, a 3-time Grammy winner. He passed away last year, but he actually arranged Bridge Over Troubled Water. And he's passed away, and his family took his website down. And really, needs to be a digital representation of his work in one place online. The Wrecking Crew is a group of about 73 musicians who played a lot of the music behind, like the Beach Boys, Sonny and Cher, a lot of huge hits that they still need to be represented because they still need to be paid for the work that they've done. And there's no comprehensive archive of their work. And then a third project that we're integrating with is a website that was started that kind of started archiving. I think you were on there, Laura, as one of the profiles, lastudiomusicians.info. So we've kind of been asked to combine forces with them to, help bring those archives into ProMusicDB to kind of start combining all the credits of all these wonderful LA legacy musicians, I'll call them. So this will make everyone aware of that effort going on. And if you'd like to join ProMusicDB, Your donation, it's $97 a year to be a member. And we're a membership organization providing education in the digital world, like this webinar today. We have lots of online resources as well for doing business. And your donation, which is your membership, lets you create a profile, but also goes towards the elevation of all these other musicians' legacy in the digital world. And that's really where we want to end up. So if you'd like to join ProMusicDB today, please do so. And if our fundraiser has started, then that website will be there and you can donate to that as well. So I just want to thank you, Laura, so much for being on today. We went over, and I might end up putting this into chunks for distribution, but we talked about some great stuff today. Is there anything you'd like to say kind of wrapping up?
No, other than thank you so much for having me, and thank you for all that you're doing to create and support the community. I think that your ProMusicDB is such a needed thing, and the logo is so awesome because it's your fingerprint. It's who you are, and as sensitive artists, you know, so much of what we've done makes up who we are as artists, as human beings, and to be able to be paid for the work that we've done, to be recognized for the work that we've done, and you're making the music world a better place. And I really appreciate all the work that you're doing. And please let me know if you ever need anything from me, and I'll continue to support you.
I appreciate that, my dear. Well, I hope everyone got something. We talked about a lot of stuff today. You know, if you want education on how to get into the business, how to work, how to get your digital presence updated and keep current, and how to reach out to contractors, I hope you got a lot of good information here. And we'll see you on the next one. Have a great musical day, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.